Hello everybody and welcome to Adobe Live. We would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land in which we are streaming and creating today, and we'd also like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Flynn and I'm joined once again by Alwyn Hunt. Hi Alwyn, how are you?
Hey Flynn, how are you going?
I'm really good, thank you. This is part 2 of our 2-part series. So the last one that we're doing here, we're diving into 3D. We had a great time on Tuesday exploring so many of the apps. I think we covered about 4 or 5 apps, including one of the ones in beta, which I know Johanna in chat was super excited to see and very excited for that to go public and jump in there. But yeah, all sorts of things within the 3D universe. So we thought we might start off with a little bit of a recap of what we did on Tuesday. Alwyn, do you want to take that away?
No, that was your homework, Flynn. I'm gonna
do
that.
No worries. Okay, off the top of my head, here we go. We used Stager. So we explored Stager. Sampler.
You got the S right.
I got the S right. Sampler.
Yep.
Stager is the one that I used in one of our previous streams, and we looked at creating. I'm not going to remember all the apps. I can't do it.
I know there's too many. There's too many to remember.
The Substance ecosystem is what we checked out. I should have just left it at that. I shouldn't have put myself in that situation.
I know.
The host. Why did I do that?
I put you on the spot, but let me quickly recap.
Thank you.
Yeah, we dived into Sampler, which was just a really cool little tool for being able to create your own sort of bespoke materials, and we looked at creating that embroidery badge that you can use on virtual fashion, etc. We dived into Modeler, which you mentioned, Flynn, which is currently in beta and will be open for public very, very soon. Actually, one thing that Johanna pointed out, that it's only available for PC at the moment. So I don't know how many people jumped offline and then jumped straight into it to realize that it's actually not available for Mac. That is coming. That's just around the corner as well. And then we looked at the 3D asset library. We jumped into Painter, and we were just going through the UI and just showing how the setup is very similar to what you'd find in other Adobe products. So for today, I was just going to pick up what I wanted to do actually a little bit. Flynn, I don't know if you want me to pick it up now, or did you want to say a few more words, mate, before we kick off?
No, we're good. I think just this is an interactive session, so please do throw in questions as you're going along. Maybe you're a graphic designer thinking of adding 3D to your repertoire, or you want to add some 3D elements to your project. So great for branding projects and things like that to expand your portfolio, or if you want to show a client. I mean, we went through a really great how quickly you could create a logo embroidery, and it looks amazing. It looks real for your clients, because clients love that stuff. So whether or not they actually make it or not, it's always great to show clients how their logo might look in the 3D space and how it will interact in different spaces. So throw your questions in chat. We are on Behance and we're also on YouTube. So don't hesitate, come and say hi.
Excellent. So what I wanted to do was just actually kind of pick it up with one of Flynn's previous episodes where he was actually playing around with 3D and materials in Illustrator. And I thought, you know what, it's an area that I haven't really dived too much into. And I thought actually, you covered some fantastic stuff. And I even learned some stuff on there, which was awesome.
Oh,
so you can never stop learning. But what I wanted to do was just pick it up from where he left off and just show you what I covered on Tuesday, which is really those materials. And you can see here, we've got those materials that are part of this UI as well, and you can import in your favorite materials or download one from the 3D asset library and be able to bring it in here. And what I've done here quickly is I've kind of just got an outline of our soda can, and this is the one that we're going to pick up in Substance 3D Painted today and be able to create some really cool renders with. But I've done an outline because I didn't want to embarrass myself with how bad my skills are in Illustrator. But what I wanted to do here was just show you a bit of an extension on some of the stuff that Flynn showed you with this little this new sort of UI here with the 3D and material. And if I go back into the object settings here, and you can see, and Flynn's already covered all this, so I'm not going to worry about any of this, but I'm just going to do a quick revolve around this. I've got a base color there, which I'm just mapping onto that. And we've got our little rotation gizmo there where you can just quickly spin around. Now, at this point, when I sort of was working with this, I was kind of like, oh, it's kind of cool. But, in terms of exporting this out and bringing it into Substance at the moment, I feel like there's still a few limitations. But in terms of somebody that's wanting to quickly create that visual 3D visualization, I guess, and then be able to use the power of these materials to be able to do some cool stuff. I thought that was really actually quite exciting. So for something like this, we've got our can, I could change that material to aluminium and then start playing with our lights. And you've got that little render button up the top that Flynn was hesitant to push the other day. So you can click on that and, get a quick look at what's happening. You can play with your lights and intensity and all the various settings and so forth. So lots of stuff that you can play with there. In terms of adding a graphic onto the actual material itself on top of it, so you can see here we've got that aluminium added to our can now. If I wanted to add, say, a graphic, for example, if I go to my graphics tab up here, you can see there's a couple loaded. Now, if I was to access my libraries and just dragging that onto the canvas, and I click on that, you can see that it's linked, and there's no way for me to be able to drag and drop that onto my object here. So I need to actually go in and unlink that. So to do that, and to be honest, I didn't even know how to do this. This is why I'm sharing it. So you go to links, you go up here and you go embed image. You need to embed that. And then I can just drag that into that little palette there. I can remove that from there.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that either. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just a little tip that I was just, because I was trying to figure it out, and I was like, why is this not just dragging onto my object, So, and then once you've got that, you can then obviously just click on the image that you want to use, and I can then be able to map that. Should I? If I double click on that, sorry, and that should just then map straight onto my object. So I'm just going to close. I think that's still loading, and making sure that that's not there. Your graphics, your materials, got that, your graphics, and should be able to just drag and drop that straight onto maybe I've got to have my model. Sorry, yeah, you got to have your model selected.
Yeah,
and then click on it. So then it will add it to your little layer stack down here, and you can see there that it's added it straight to it. Again, when I was playing with this, like I said, I added it a few times. So that was me getting a bit crazy with pushing the button. So I'll just remove
when
them.
It doesn't work a couple of times, and then
you freak out. You're like, I'm live. I need to get rid of them quickly. But you can see there that it was actually adding to my stack there. So it's kind of cool. So you can actually add multiple graphics to your object as well. So there's a number of things that you can do there. You can replace that image, and then once you've got that, I can then reposition and so forth. But what I wanted to do was just actually show the power of some of these materials that I've dragged in here, and I'm going to just create quickly a section here. And sorry, I'm just going to move that off, cancel that. Just going to move this one here to the side. I'm going to zoom back out a little bit and just reposition that over there. And I'm just going to create an object here, and maybe it's just something like this. And now I want to add a material to it. So I can add something like this brick wall, for example. I can add that to this section and automatically generate. So, say for example, you've got something that you want an environment that you want to populate in the background, then I can start playing around with things like this, right? So, well, on Tuesday, I mentioned about all the parameters that you're able to change in a base material. So you get all those same attributes inside of Illustrator. So, I can change the joint color, for example. If I'm just going to make it pink or red or something so you can see it. But it'll go through, and I've got all this power to be able to change and quickly update this. So if somebody, an art director, come to me and said, hey, I want to change the size of those bricks in the back, you can, it's through really just through a slider that you can quickly update these things. So there's I could see a lot of uses for being able to populate certain things very, very quickly.
Yeah, I was quite surprised at the different materials, how many options there were, like with the sliders and everything, and how easy it is just to kind of play around with it.
Yeah, and that's the power of it, Flynn, is that, you know, without changing and having to hand paint a lot of things, you use these sliders to really be able to update and iterate really, really quickly. So yeah, just one thing I wanted to touch on. And if I just bring my can back into play here, I'm going to just drag that back on. Now, if I was at a point where I'm like, you know what, I'm pretty happy with my can here. I want to now export this guy out and be able to use it in something else. Then I can come up to, sorry, I should stop clicking on it. I can scroll, if I just minimize my properties palette there, right down the bottom is, I've got properties. Oh, sorry, I need to go into the object one. And then there's a little export tab that's down the bottom here, export 3D object. Now, if you're on the beta version of Illustrator, and you can, and this is a new sort of feature that will be coming, but you can export your object, and there's a couple of different options here. There's for models, for 3D models. So you got GLTF, which will actually take your materials as well as the 3D model and package that up. So then I could bring it into something like Painter or into Stager and bypass. So there's just more options for exporting and being able to stack, you know, your various things inside there. So I just wanted to highlight that.
So just jumping in there, so that file format will bring in the 3D object, but it'll also understand that it's bringing in a material, so it's saved within that type of file. So when you're going into another 3D program, those sliders and options and all that sort of stuff will be part of it?
Some of them, yeah. Most of it, it'll just actually bake all that down. So it'll take the material, what you've assigned to it. It won't expose those parameters once you've exported that out. So you would do all your stuff and all your tweaking in here and then export it out. And if you needed to come back, and then you could quickly go through and make changes inside here as well.
Right.
So
cool.
It's but what it does, it takes your materials and the model with it instead of just the model. So I think if you tried to export that currently as a OBJ, it would only take the model. So it actually takes everything with you.
Nice.
So yeah, that's just one thing I just wanted to quickly show. Now I'm going to just jump into a desktop application, and I'm going to bring that across. And now I'm going to actually open Substance 3D Painter. And we sort of finished on this on Tuesday, where I had the baseball cap and I had a little Kiwi embroidery badge that we mapped onto the cap. So I'm going to just open up Painter in the background. I'm going to close out of Illustrator so I don't kill my machine, and that's going to close that down. And then and then I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our model, which is our can of soda there. So that's just opening up. Here we go. So now we're inside of Substance Painter, and I'm going to do File, New, and I'm going to select our can of soda. So I'm going to just scroll up the top here, quick access, Flynn YouTube, can soda, and I've got a model. This can, soda can FBX, is the one that I downloaded from the 3D asset library. And just to remind you where that was, so I'm in 3D asset library here, and if I do can, we've got our soda can here. So I just downloaded that to my downloads directory, and you can see there FBX or GLB, and I just downloaded FBX, and this is what I get. First thing you always do, and I mentioned this on Tuesday, is you go into your texture set, and remember those baked mesh maps, and I said we didn't want to get technical with that. It just does a lot of work for us. So I'm just going to go through and just quickly push that, and you can see what it's doing. It's making those nice colorful maps that we were looking at on Tuesday. Yeah. So I'll let that run through. It's almost done. It's really, really fast. Click OK. Bam, we've got a can. So the first thing I want to do here is whenever I'm texturing or adding materials to a 3D object, I kind of deconstruct it in my head, like as in what it would look like or what the materials are in real life. So, you know, Flynn, help me out here. What's a can made of?
Aluminium.
So we got, look at that, bam,
or aluminum.
or aluminum, depending on where you're from.
Depending where you're from, yeah.
So I can drag that straight onto my model, or I can drag it up into my layer stack there. So I'm just going to drag that into our layer stack, and I'm going to get rid of this empty layer because we don't need that. It's redundant. So you can see there, we've got that base aluminium. And if I was like, hey, Flynn said, you know what, that's looking way too bright, then I've got these sliders that I can dial that back. Remember, we can adjust the settings if I wanted to make it fully reflective. And you can see our environment actually lighting can there, and it's an outdoor one. So let's just do something while we can see that. I'm going to go to a studio setup, and I'm going to just drag that into my viewport, and bam, now we have that studio reflecting in the can.
Oh, wow. So that's interesting.
I'm going to bring the reflectivity back down again, and I'm going to have it somewhere sitting around there. So again, I can also change that color. If I wanted to make it pink or whatever, then I can make it whatever color I want. I'm just going to sit somewhere around there. So the next thing we want to add is maybe if this is a can of Coke, and based off the reference that I provided Flynn, I think we had a sort of a yellowy color that was making this can up. So to do that, I'm just going to create a new layer, and it's what we call a fill layer. Again, it's just adding a default color. It's adding these default channels in there for me. And if I wanted to make it the same color as a logo that I had on there, then I'm just going to import in those logos and I guess images, texture images that I want to use for my can. So you can see here, I've got some logos and some patterns and stuff like that I want to add. And there you can see that's our image that we were promoting as part of this series. And I'll just pull that up so you can see it. So we're gonna do this. We're gonna grab these three. We're gonna create these three cans and drop it into a background like that. So I'm gonna grab these images, and all I'm gonna do, I've selected them all. I'm gonna just drag and drop them into my shelf, and we get this little interface that asks us what they are, and I can go through and I can select them all and say, hey, you know what, these are textures, and I'm just going to go, I want to add them to this project, and I import them in. So it's just a simple import. You can see there that they've landed on our shelf.
Nice.
The other one that I wanted to import in was this one here. It's kind of a foliage one, and I want to import that in, but I want to use that as an alpha. So I'm going to import that into my shelf. I get that same little interface, and I'm saying I want that as an alpha, and I'm going to bring that in for this project as well. And it's going to import that in, and it drops it under our alphas tab there.
So can you explain the terminology of alpha for people who don't know what it might mean? Because my understanding would be it's a little bit like how we refer to alpha in motion design.
So you explain it, Flynn, because it's exactly the same.
I love how you're putting me on the spot. This is great. See, what I like to do is set someone up without actually having the knowledge. It's basically like a transparent, right? So when we're talking about an alpha, it's like an alpha channel. So if you're exporting something, my understanding from video, like exporting something from video, and you include the alpha, then you can have it you basically have the alpha coming through. So you have it on a transparent background. So my guess is that it's something similar to that.
It's exactly the same.
That's great, because if I got that wrong, I was going to end the stream. So
yeah,
I was just going to turn it off quickly.
You did do your homework, which is good. It's exactly the same thing. So it's, some people call them, mats, alphas, there's, you got alpha channels, it's the same thing. It's using a black and white mask to really say, hey, where it's black, I don't want any color coming through or any information coming through. And where it's white, that's where I want the information coming through, essentially. Cool. So so we've got our can here, we've baked our mesh maps. I'm going to use this logo here. So I want to sample one of these colors from this image, so I can use the eyedropper here. I can do it a couple of ways. I can sample straight off there if I wanted to, and you can see there I can grab that. Or I can actually, even if I had this image open here, it will actually recognize that I can sample. Whoops, if I need to just kind of minimize that a little bit, let's just bring that down. But if I've got like a reference image or something, I can use my eyedropper and it'll actually reference straight off an external program as well. So I can grab that color there.
So you can even eyedropper like something from the web, like just something you're browsing or.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
So now we've got our base color, and I want to change the specular or the shininess of this so it's not matching the can. So I'm just going to dial that down to somewhere midway. I don't need any height or any of these information here. All I want is the color, metal, and the roughness. And then the next part is really just to actually mask off what parts that I want to see that base aluminium come through. So to do that, I just, again, right click on this, black mask, and our black mask is covering everything, which we'd expect it to do. And we've got that tool here, which is our polygon fill tool. And now I'm going to go through and actually I can either select it straight in the 3D viewport here, or do that 3D, 2D split. So I can
that's cool.
A little bit more precise of where I want to mask. And I can come through and make my selection. So I can either do it that way, like that, or I can do it, I'm going to do the inverse of that. So I just want to select these areas here.
Oh, wow, that's neat.
And if I have a look at a can, you can see there that it's, it's got that. Or if I didn't want to go quite that far, then I hit X, and you can see here if I hit X, it's just changing this slider, the same as in Photoshop. In Illustrator, X is black and white. So I can go back there and then I can add to my selection really, really easily. So I'll just add it back to that point there. And you can see there now we have the bottom exposed and the top exposed. So it's super easy to be able to add and remove to your mask.
That's really clever, like that, the way that sorry, just to interrupt, because I haven't seen that before, the way that it's just all mapped out as individual 2D elements, just so you can so easily and quickly select everything. That's great.
Yeah, and it's also, if you wanted to be more precise with being able to lay things out, you've got that sort of 2D viewport and go, that's where I want to position it. Sometimes you're guessing when you're sort of rotating around a 3D object, so you get the sort of the best of both worlds with that.
Yeah, that's cool.
We've got our logo. We've mapped that out. If I wanted to and go, hey, you know what? I wanted some more of that aluminium to come through, and I wanted to paint on the mask, then I can come through and just add a paint layer. And if I select a brush, I come up here. I'm just going to go back to my brushes option up here, and I'm just going to go starter assets, and I'm just going to select a brush. Maybe it's just a hard brush. Then I can essentially paint straight on there, and it will unveil that bottom. So it's the same as in Photoshop. You can use a layer just to be able to bring that back through. So you're not restricted just by selecting geometry. You can hand paint and stuff as well. Nice. So we've got a can there. Now the next part we want to add is maybe our mask or our alpha. So if I go back and I'm just going to do project here, and I'm going to do our alpha here, and these are just filters. So you can see at the moment I've got one, this one here, which is our alphas selected. If I wanted to add to that, I can hold Control down and then just keep adding to these. So if I've got custom brushes that I've created, or I've got other things, then I can just select what I want to show here. So for this, I'm going to create a fill mask. I'm going to create a black mask. And then in here, I'm going to create another fill mask, and that's going to give me this slot here, which will allow me to add that alpha because it's a grayscale. I'm not interested in color. So I can drag and drop that straight in there. And you can see there that it's using that black and white image now to show through that pattern. So if I wanted to invert that, then there's a couple of ways I could do that actually. I can come through here and I could add a filter, similar to what you do in Photoshop, add a filter and go, okay, I want to invert it. So you can type in invert and bam. So then we've got our pattern, which is just really subtle, coming through and showing that metal through.
That's really cool. This looks like a very summery drink at this stage.
That's it. That's what we want. That's what we're praying for right now. Anyway, a bit of summer.
Yeah.
So if I've got complete control to change the coloring inside that pattern as well. You can see there that I've just gone back to that base color, and I'm just adjusting that. So I could make it whatever I wanted to. And we can just make it, I actually quite like it a little bit like that, which is cool. if I wanted to change the scale pattern there, you can see once I've clicked on that first little thumbnail there, it brings up this what they call gizmo, and I can then adjust this. Oops, actually I need to go to the mask layer, so this one here, and it brings up that gizmo. I can then adjust that because that fill layer is where we've got the pattern, but that allows me to then scale, do lots of cool things with it to bring it to a scale which I'm happy with, and position it somewhere like that, and then I've got that as my base. If I wanted to bring
and it just automatically repeats it. It's understanding to
yeah, exactly. If I didn't want it on repeat, Flynn, I could then go up to here and say no, I just want it to have the pattern, and you can see there that's all that's coming through. But so you want to kind of have a tileable pattern that you can have, and you repeat it, boom, it covers the whole thing now.
Very cool.
So I've got my can, I've got my my pattern on there. Actually, I might make it a little lighter just so we feel a little bit more summery. Yeah, exactly. So I've got that there, and what I want to do now is be able to go through and add that logo that we've got on top there. So I can just add a fill layer, and what I want to do is replace that base color. And you can see down here under our properties, it's just a gray color. So like I said, I could make this any color I wanted to, but I'm actually going to use this image that we've brought in to actually drive that color. And you can see there, again, it's like that got that gizmo. Now I can reposition this. So I can bring that down and rotate that rounds. And if I hold down shift, it'll lock to that, to the 45 or the 90. And I can scale that to kind of roughly where I want it to be. And as you pointed out, at the moment it's repeating, and this is a case where we don't want it to repeat. So we've got our logo on our can.
Nice.
And at any stage we can move that, position it, whatever we need to do with that, and just we're completely flexible to be able to change that whenever we want. So now we've got our can, and you can see how easy it is. It's just adding layers, adding these decals and images, adjusting the base color, and that's it. But you can see, actually, I'm just going to note there, you can see how that pattern's coming through on the can.
Right.
Now, if I wanted to mask that out, then I'd go back to I'm just going to name this because I'm terrible at naming my layers. Yellow. And then we've got our label. So if I go back to my pattern here, and if I wanted to add to my mask, and if I just hold down Alt and hit the mask, you can see there, this is exactly what our mask is doing, or that image is creating that alpha. So I just want to be able to get rid of that stuff that's happening on the top. So to do that, I'm clicking on that mask, right clicking, and I'm adding that paint layer that we talked about before. So I'm just adding to my mask here. Now we already know where that metal part was because we selected that to be able on the previous mask to be able to show that through. So it's the same process. I can come up here and I can just select those areas that I don't want that pattern to be on. Now, if I go back and hit M on the keyboard, you can see now that pattern is not part of that selection.
That's great.
So I just quickly added to my mask, but you see how easy it was. I didn't have to paint anything out. So we've got that there. I'm sort of mindful of the time as well. So we've got our can now, which is looking pretty good. If I wanted to add those barcodes, it's exactly the same process. I can come up here, add a fill layer.
And so just a question on formatting, like if you're bringing in a logo, what file formats can you bring in? Like was that a PNG or a JPEG?
Yeah, for the alphas, you want to be able to preserve that transparency or that alpha. So you would export that out as a PNG. Yep. You're right. And if it's just images, then they can be they can be JPEGs. Any sort of image, file format that's you can use, no problem at all.
Okay, great.
So I'm just repeating that same process, adding a fill layer here. I'm going to use our barcode. I'm going to drop that down. You can see there that it's really big. Again, I'd hit the F1 on the keyboard on a PC, and then I could scale that down. You can see it's repeating, and I want that to be somewhere over on the back here. Click on none and just find out where it's positioned. Probably want the size to be a little bit smaller, and then just drop that down. And if I wanted to, I could add another fill layer in here. And I'm just layering on top here, and I'm going to bring in that nutritional facts little alpha there as well. So I'm just, instead of creating a whole new fill layer, I just can keep adding to that sort of sub layer stack in there. And the same as what you do in Photoshop, if I just bring that down, and I know my barcode's sort of at the back there, bring that down to a right size, but we can't see our barcode anymore. So I'm just going to change my blend mode, which is here. I'm going to change that to linear dodge. And you can see now our barcode is coming through. I'm going to change that to no repeat and scale that down.
That's cool. I love to see the things that are like familiar for someone that is very familiar with Photoshop, like the layers and the stacking and like this, it's like a blend mode in Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why people are able to pick it up quite quickly too, Flynn, is that they go, oh, wow, yeah, I understand that because I've used that before in something else, right? So, yeah, it's great for that. It's not a huge learning curve. So I've got my nutritional, my barcode. I'm pretty good now. The only other thing that I was thinking was I've got this label, and it's probably, I'd like to have it so that it was actually maybe a sticker rather than something that had been printed onto the metal. So I can go back to my label here, and if I'm going to just zoom in so we can all see it. I'm going to hit F2 on the keyboard so we can zoom right in, but we can see the edge there. So if I've got height enabled there, I can actually give that a bit of an edge. Can you see that pop out?
Yeah. It's like a little drop shadow or something.
Or drive it out, right? So
that's so funny because we have a question in chat saying, are you able to make effects on the can like emboss and deboss? And this is almost like an emboss.
Yeah, you can do it either way. So you can put in a negative value, which will go in. You can see there. Or I want it just to pop out a little bit, so I can do it something like that. So cool. You've got that. So I'm pretty happy with that actually, Flynn. I'm liking where it's at. We've got our aluminium. We've named our layers. What I'm going to do here is just create a folder. I'm going to drag that to the top, and I'm going to call this yellow variation 1. And then I'm just going to drag all those layers into that into that folder. And then I've got a nice clean folder with my can. Now, I just want to show you how easy it is to create variations from that. So I can duplicate that folder, and we'll rename that, and we'll call that red variation. Get rid of that part. And now that I've got all that set up, I'm just going to come through and that yellow label now, instead of it being, and I'm going to hide that first one so we can see what's going on. I'm going to come over here, sample pick, and I'm going to do this peachy reddy color. And it's changed that base. I'm going to also come down to the label. I'm going to change out my label here and just drag and drop that straight in there. And now we've got a variation of that can straight away. And at any stage, I can change any of those other parameters in there. So I've got that, duplicate that. Now I'm going to do my purple version.
Very cool. So as you're duplicating it, is that like you're sort of saving a version?
Yeah, it's duplicating all those layers in there, and there are other ways where I could be clever and just actually use, some of these layers to exchange out, these textures as well. But this is just super simple because it's like all I'm doing is replacing the images and updating the color. So it's not too sophisticated. So I can come back through here. I've got my yellow color sample of that peach or that purple color. Bam, go to my label, swap that out. I'm good to go. And now I've got the 3 variations. Awesome. So what I want to do here is now send this across to Stager. So what I do here, I've got like a little icon. It says send to Substance 3D Stager.
That's easy.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't even have to push the launch button. That's how easy it is. So I'm just going to click on that, and it's going to open Stager in the background. It's going to drop, like I said, it's going to take all our beautiful textures, drop that all down with the model into the Stager viewport there. So that's just opening up, and you can see it is dropping it in there. And once it does that, you can see we've got our can. Whoops, it's all nicely all packaged up for us. So we've now got that can. But you can see there, grab the purple one. So I'm just going to call that purple. I'll go back to Painter, and we've got the purple one selected. So I'm going to turn that off. And now I'm going to do the red one. I'm going to do the same thing, send to Stager. And if I go back across to Stager, it's got the red one in there now. And if I go back to Painter again, and I'll grab the last one and send to Stager. And back in Stager, we've got the yellow one.
Nice.
And there's a really cool little alignment feature. So if I select all three of those cans, there's a little icon down here. It's called Align and Distribute, right? So if I click on that selects all those three cans and goes, okay, cool, let's space them out.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
And let's just do something like that. And it just does it, really, really nicely. So we've got our cans there. So that now we're inside Stager, and I'm just going to check for time because I'm conscious of that. Flynn, what are we looking at?
20 minutes, exactly.
Okay, cool. Excellent. So now we're inside Stager, and was there any questions on Painter before I close that down? Did anyone have any questions?
I think we covered them. We covered the emboss and deboss. There's one more question. Would sending these across to Stager make them into smart objects of sorts?
Yeah, when we look at it inside Stager, so if I click on, say, the yellow can, I'm just going to drop that down. I'll select on the mesh. We can see under the properties palette here, we've got material. What it does, it gives you some of the attributes, so you can still change like basic parameters in there, but you don't get the full range of parameters. So in some ways it is a smart material because it kind of collapses it down and gives you, and you can see here, we've got over here on the left-hand side, we've got the texture map that it's created for us. And then some basic parameters under here. And if I was to go back across to Painter, for example, it's flattened all these layers down, so we don't get access to all these individual layers again. But if I needed to make any updates, then I could quickly come back in here, update, export that, send it back to Stager again as well. Yeah,
so it's not linked in a sense. No. You export it, you make the changes here, and then you export, and then you pop it into Stager. Cool.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, there's not a live link, so if I was to update here, it would directly update in Stager. But there is a live link inside of Stager, and maybe I can quickly show you that as well. So if I again, I just want to emphasize the layout. We've got a number of palettes over this side, or shelves that we can access, or filters. And then we've got our layer stack, or it's called scene here, but it's essentially a layer stack. And then underneath that, we've got our properties palette that we're able to access and change things. So I was just going to show you. Yeah. So for example, if I'm in this, I'll go to the red can because that's the first one. I'm just going to go to the can mesh there, and I'll swing my lights around, and I'll just go to the back. So if I wanted to add something like an Illustrator file onto this can, then you can see I've got my materials icon selected here. You can see we've got our base texture map. There's a little icon here that says add image on model. So I can select a graphic. So I'm just going to click that. And if I go to my quick options here, and I've got some Illustrator files, and I've got like it's just a headphone thing. So I can just bring this in. So I'm going to open that. This is an Illustrator file. I can click on that, and it's going to bring in our Illustrator file. But this will actually, so you can see there, this is my Illustrator file. I've got, cool. If I click on this little, where it's got the actual thumbnail, it might be really small for viewers, but if I click on that, you can see there, this is the image, but it actually recognizes Illustrator artboards. so I can quickly change out my artboards. And if I've got different logos and stuff, so
that's cool.
It's super cool. Again, once I'm in there, I can adjust and change things. But if I come back to here, there's a little button there that says edit, and if I click on that, it'll actually launch Illustrator.
Wow.
and set up the actual live link between Illustrator and this file. So if I needed to, maybe there's somebody else that's creating the artwork for this. So, and you can see here, it's just launched. I clicked on it, and it's launched Illustrator for me. So somebody can be working on the Illustrator file and be updating while you're in 3D there. Whoops.
That's awesome. So you could have your entire brand asset library on separate artboards in Adobe Illustrator, and then basically link the one file, and then click through and add the elements as you want as you were going through into your 3D space.
Exactly. A live
That's
link.
very cool. I love it.
So you can see there, I've just updated. I'm just going to save that, and hopefully that will. So I've just saved that, changed the base color. I don't think I need to change. Maybe I just change something there. Do that. And theoretically, that should update. Did I save that? I think I did. That should have updated then when I saved it. And
nothing like that ever works when you're live streaming.
Nothing ever works like that, but
not when you're doing a demo.
That's the theory behind that. And I don't know what did I save that wrong? Base decal. Oh, hang on, did I save that twice or something? Oh, maybe that was my fault. I duplicated it. File and save as. Oh, here we go on your computer, and I'll go to that one.
So you're just saving over the
Save that one because that wasn't the one. There we go. Okay.
It's really cool that it understands a Illustrator file so well, even the artboards and
everything. It might actually create a temporary file when that does that. Actually, that's probably why it did that. But anyway, that's the sort of the theory behind it. That should have worked. But that's pretty cool. Like you said, somebody can be working on that Illustrator file while you're working in the 3D space.
Amazing.
So
I love that.
Again, we've got our cans here. Just to quickly go through the interface here, if I enlarge that, we've got base models here. So there's some really cool stuff in here. So if I wanted to create an environment with these cans, then I can drag and drop some of this 3D stuff, the 3D models in here. And I just wanted to show viewers this one really quickly because this is kind of cool. I can pull this back. I can rotate that round so it's sort of sitting at the back and pull that back. But if I wanted to create a room, this model here is actually procedural, so I can come into the object and be able to change parameters here. So I can quickly adjust, add the walls. I can add more windows if I wanted to go frame depth.
What is this asset? Like concrete with hole in wall or something? It seems so strange.
Yeah, it's what the name of it?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I'm confused.
Is that what it's called? No, it's called wall round windows.
It's a round window. Okay.
Round windows.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so you can quickly just start getting, I could add glass in there, and then I could put a background image to replicate an environment. You know what I mean? So you can actually do a lot more staging with the 3D models that make up Stager, right? So if I wanted to, I'll say for example, I could add a plinth there, or a pedestal, whatever you want to call it, and then just reposition my cans on top of that. So you can grab those cans. And what I love about Stager is, you watch as I position this. So I'm positioning it and I'm just moving it down. And if I just move that to a point there, it just kind of indicates when something is about to do some if it's about to intersect geometry there. So it just makes gives me a little indication that, okay, cool, it's it's rather than having to penetrate the geometry, it's just tells me when it's going to happen.
So it's just it's a little bit sticky, like a guide, like it kind of clips. Yeah.
Exactly. And the other thing is that you can, if I wanted to actually enable collisions, which is a really cool one, so I'll do that just to show viewers, but up the top here, we've got collision. If I turn that, I've got these three, I'm going to select the pedestal as well. I'm going to go enable collisions. So now, if I select these three cans and I bring this up and then I bring them down, sorry, I'm going to do that. It's enabled collisions. And yellow one. Have I got? So did I bring? Maybe I have to do them. And yeah, there you go. So I have to do them individually. I couldn't group select that, but you can see I've enabled collisions there. So now if I select these and I actually bring them down, and it didn't do it. Yeah, because I have to have that enabled as well. Sorry.
Right.
I grab my cans, and then it will actually. The purple one I haven't done. Turn that on. There you go. Sorry.
Cheeky
so
purple one.
So I've got it there, and now it actually collides with the surface.
Oh, right.
So if I wanted to do something like, if I wanted my cans to have a bit more of a natural, so I'm just going to do something like this. I'll just rotate them slightly, and
can we zoom in a little bit as well?
Oh, no problem.
Thank you.
So I've got the cans there selected, and they're so if I bring them down, they're going to collide with the surface.
Oh, yeah.
And they just do like a bit of a natural fall. So let me do this red one. So if I just... it's a bit... If I just...
It's like you just threw the can off the plinth in disgust. Collide correctly.
Exactly. But anyway, you can use this collision to kind of get more of a natural fall, that rather than sort of having to do this in 3D, which is, okay, well, let's just rotate and try and work out how that would naturally fall on an object, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because that's a really difficult thing to do, especially if you're not experienced with, the 3D space like I would be, to actually make it look right. I could probably try it for a really long time and just think, why does this look so weird? It's almost uncanny valley level. Like if something's hovering in space, it's not going to look quite naturally, not going to look quite natural.
Yeah.
So having something like that is really cool.
And that's why, they introduce these kind of really just nice little features that will just help and, help people that aren't sort of familiar with 3D to be able to do something, a bit more natural. Yeah. So I'm just going to take this all the way back. I'm going to just get rid of that pedestal. I'm going to grab those three cans. I'm going to hit this little icon down here, and that will just ground them back to our ground plane. And that was just a little icon there, move to ground. So now that I've got them on the ground plane there, what I want to do is actually bring in a background image. And I think, if I remember right, which one did we use, Flynn, for the I think it was this one here. So this, I just wanted to show viewers how easy it was to be able to actually drop in your own background and actually use this image to be able to light the cans, because there's this magic button called match image. And if I click on that, you can see there's a few processes that it runs through. It looks at the camera aspect ratio. It looks at the background image and says, okay, I'm going to create lights based on this image. And if I click OK, it's also going to ground the cans to the right perspective. So I don't, again, in 3D, and I don't know if you've ever found that, Flynn, like when sometimes you're working in 3D and you're going, oh, is that the right angle based on the perspective? And
so totally.
Forth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it does a lot of the work for us, and I'm just going to get rid of that view. I'm going to not show the grid, and now I can just zoom in a little bit and get our cans placed up. And you can see that the background image is quite blurred out. So a couple of things that you want to do here, if I go to my camera settings, so we've got a camera there, we've got our object. I can actually just play with the focal length, so I can move that in, just reposition the cans where I sort of want them. I can see at the front here, these cups are quite sharp. I might just pull that back a little bit, but I can start playing with the depth of field here. So I enable that, and then I just adjust so I say, where do I want to be focused? I want this first can, so I can click on that and just select that can. And now if I introduce some blur, and I turn on my ray tracing, which you're scared to do, it's going to go. So ray tracing up here is going to give me a real-time render. And you can see I've got blur way up too high. So it's blurring out those cans. So if I knock that back, and then I'm just going to try and find that sweet spot of where the blurring gets introduced. So I'm just pulling that all the way back, and it's probably somewhere like that. So we're getting a nice sharp can at the front, and it's just dropping off nicely there.
Wow, that's amazing. Like just being able to add that in to the image, because it makes it so much more realistic. Like the difference between, like, you've got these great rendered 3D objects, but you want to put it into a space, and your eye just tells you that's a 3D object on a photo. But then as soon as you added that perspective, it just blurs reality a little bit, and it just looks so much more professional. Like it's one of those things where it's like, is it a photo shoot or is it 3D?
Exactly. And you know, and but you've seen how easy what that was, Flynn. Like I haven't played with lights. You know, like in 3D world, you'd be positioning lights and trying to get things to work. And you know, if I wanted to, I can come up into my environment here, and you know, there is lights in here, and it's showing you exactly how it's working. So if I just hover above that little icon there, you can see that that's the background image being used. Again, I could actually edit this if I wanted to. I've got a couple of lights that it's created that I could either increase the intensity or rotate slightly to maybe move my highlight so that it's affecting, you know, the back of the can or the front of the can. So there's fine adjustments that I can still go in there and make depending on what my final look I want. You can see there, I just got a nice little highlight off that. So it's really kicking that out. And then from that, it's as simple as that. So I've got this set up, and then I can go through and create new cameras based on this render. So up the top here, I can go click on this little icon, it says add camera. And now in this drop down, I've got two cameras, camera 1 and camera 2. And if I wanted to, you know, if I was creating this for a magazine or an InDesign or some other resolution that I needed, then I can just click on this little, click on the actual main viewport there, and you can see there that we're getting this blue line around the actual render, and I can adjust my render based on the dimensions. Either I can put them in manually, so I can come up here and go, okay, the camera here, maybe I want it for Instagram or something, so I'll go 1024 and 1024. So I can quickly put that in, and again, I can sort of adjust things. I'll just turn off ray tracing there because it's wigging out a little bit, but I can adjust my resolution, and then I can even adjust based, maybe I want that to be the feature can or something like that, but it's not altering my other cameras. So I can set up multiple cameras, multiple renders, and then when I get to the point where I've got all my product shots set up, ready to go, I can come across to render, and I can render out all my cameras all in one hit.
Oh, cool.
Or I can render it out as a Photoshop file, which is pretty sweet. And I'm going to open that in the background while we're just finishing up here. And
cool. We got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, exactly. No, I didn't think there was too much longer, but I'm going to open up Photoshop while we're doing that, and I'm going to go back to our design. So just quickly going through here, see there's different, again, the familiarity with these light stages through sampler and so forth. We've got all them. I can use these different lighting environments to light my objects. I can import in my own images. So maybe I've taken an image on set that I want to use. I can simply drag and drop that image straight into the background and replace it. So lots and lots of flexibility. And then if I wasn't even happy with the materials that were on my can, I can come back through and add my own materials straight onto the objects within Stager as well, and actually carry on where I left off with the material. So last thing I wanted to show is if I go here, file open, and if I just go to, I've got a headphones, so I know I've got a headphones one here, renders, and so I've got light stage. Yeah, cool. Sorry, I'm going to bring up the shoe, which is a good one. Yep, and I've got something here. So a PSD, hiking boot. Let's bring this one up just quickly. I know we've got a minute left, 30 seconds.
Pretty much.
So there we go. This is what it outputs. So it actually creates all these layers for me. So you can see here I've got this hiking boot. If I just scroll in there, and that's the render. I can actually isolate everything. So that's the render of the boots. It's got these masks that it all creates for me. So that's it. It actually creates a lot of layers for me that I can do some post work even after that.
There you go.
Bada boom. Bada boom.
That's amazing and excellent timing. So we're going to call it there. Thank you, Alwyn. It's been so much fun jumping into 3D. I'm just sitting here staring, just thinking, I got to play around with these apps way more because I really, really enjoy it. I love the realism that you can get really quickly as well. Thank you so much for Tuesday's stream and today's stream. It's been amazing hanging out with you. We'll have to have you back on again.
You're welcome. Anytime, Flynn. It was a pleasure, and I hope viewers got some little nuggets out of it. And I can't wait to see what people create. You can contact me either through LinkedIn or whatever, but I'd love to see what people come up with. That'd be awesome.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. We'll be back next week with Adobe Live. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Adobe Live. Thanks again, Alwyn.
Thanks, Flynn. See you, everybody.
Bye.